Pregnant wife rushes to hospital alone. Millionaire husband stays with mistress instead of her. Have you ever witnessed the kind of heartbreak that rips the ground right out from under someone's feet? Imagine a heavily pregnant woman left trembling at her front door in the dead of night, with contractions piercing her very core. Her phone clutched tightly in her hand, knuckles gone white. She dials the one person she believes would rush to her side, the father of her unborn child. Except he's nowhere near a hospital. He's in a penthouse suite with someone else entirely. This is the harrowing tale of Marissa Wellington, whose trust is shattered by betrayal at the worst possible moment. Marissa Wellington was never one to envision a life of unimaginable wealth. She had grown up on a small farm in Indiana, where the edges of the day faded into golden fields rather than the neon lights of a city skyline. Yet at 27, she found herself living in a 3-story mansion in Brentwood Heights, married to Max Wellington, a charismatic millionaire entrepreneur. Their marble floors, imported crystal chandeliers, and swirling staircase reeked of opulence, a far cry from her humble beginnings. For outsiders, Marissa was the picture-perfect trophy wife, striking brown eyes, auburn hair, and a gentle, unassuming demeanor that softened even the coldest hearts. She had been a part-time yoga instructor, then a personal trainer, all before her chance meeting with Max at a charity event. That night, she'd been wearing a borrowed gown and had stood quietly near the refreshments, counting the minutes until she could go home. He spotted her, introduced himself with that self-assured grin of his, and from the moment he took her hand, he was smitten. To Marissa, Max was charming, witty, and knowledgeable on just about anything business. Travel, wine, you name it. He could disarm you in seconds with his talk of philanthropic ambitions, planning to build schools in underprivileged nations. Sure enough, as months of courtship turned into a year, he proposed under the setting sun on a private beach in Bali. It was the fairy tale she never thought she'd get, complete with paparazzi photos. Max was notoriously famous in certain circles and glossy magazine spreads. She felt like she was living in a dream, but nightmares hide best under the mask of dreams. The more successful Max became in his business dealings, venture capital, technology startups, real estate, the more frequently he'd be gone. At first, Marissa rationalized it. He was a busy man. The time they spent together was magical, like bursts of sunlight between storms. But over the last year, she had started noticing subtle changes. He was more short-tempered, less interested in their usual date nights, and his phone had more secrets than the Pentagon. Now, heavily pregnant with their first child, Marissa felt a distinct hollowness gnaw at her heart. The child within her was everything she'd ever wanted. She prayed that this baby would anchor them closer, weaving their lives together in a stronger bond. What she didn't expect was that the threads of her marriage would start to unravel just when she needed Max the most. Marissa sat by the bedroom window, gazing out at the flickering city lights below. Her belly, now 8 months along, felt tight. Lately, she'd been experiencing sporadic contractions, but none so severe as to make her worry until that evening. Her obstetrician, Dr. Perez, had warned her about preterm labor given certain health concerns. She was to call the hospital at the first sign of real trouble. She pressed a hand to her stomach, exhaling a nervous breath. Max had promised to be home early that night. No more midnight signings, he'd texted. But that promise was about as stable as an autumn leaf. It was nearing 11:30 p.m., and all she had were a few missed calls to his phone, unanswered texts, and a growing sense of dread. Finally, the door opened, but it wasn't Max. A house staff member, Yolanda, came in and asked if she needed anything. "No, thanks," Marissa responded gently. "Just, do you know if Mr. Wellington called?" Yolanda shook her head apologetically. With every passing minute, Marissa's anxiety mounted. She remembered overhearing bits of rumors, especially one swirling around a certain other woman named Olivia Reynolds. People at Max's company gatherings whispered that Olivia was more than just an ambitious marketing director. More than once, Marissa had brushed it off as office gossip. Then she'd seen a text pop up on Max's phone a few weeks back. "You looked hot last night," with a heart emoji from a contact named Olivia R. Max had claimed it was just a joke, but jokes don't usually come with heart emojis at 1 a.m. Marissa would never forget how her stomach twisted with suspicion and how Max turned it back on her. "Don't you trust me?" he'd snapped. She did. She wanted to. But trust is fragile, especially when the nights grow longer, phone calls shorter, and the man you love is nowhere to be found. That night, as her back seized with a sharper than usual pain, she realized she might be going into labor. With trembling hands, she tried calling Max again, but it went directly to voicemail. "Max, it's me." Her voice was quavering. "I don't know where you are, but I'm not feeling well. I think it's time." She ended the call, hoping he would hurry home. But an hour later, there was still no response. Fright took over. She clutched her belly, feeling the contractions intensify. There was no time to wait. Summoning the last shred of composure she had, she called for Yolanda to help her to the car. Within minutes, she was alone in the back seat of her sleek, black SUV, driver's seat empty because the staff was told not to drive her anywhere themselves, strict instructions from Max for liability reasons. And so, Marissa, 8 months pregnant, in excruciating pain, had no choice but to drag herself behind the wheel. With tears blurring her vision, she backed out of the driveway, one hand pressed against her belly, whispering to the unborn child, "Hold on, baby. Please, hold on." Carter Memorial Hospital was a stark contrast to the mansion's glamorous halls. Fluorescent lights flickered, gurneys rattled, and the smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air. By the time Marissa got there, sweat drenched her brow. She parked haphazardly near the emergency entrance and half stumbled inside, calling out for help. Nurses rushed forward, placing her on a wheelchair and quickly paging Dr. Perez. Moments later, she was in a labor and delivery room, her thoughts spiraling. Where is Max? She tried calling him again while hooking up to the 4th, but it went straight to voicemail. All around her, nurses and doctors scurried, testing her blood pressure, hooking her up to a fetal heart monitor. The beep-beep of her unborn child's heartbeat offered a steady, comforting rhythm, but still no sign of Max. Dr. Perez came bustling in, her face etched with concern. "Marissa, how long have the contractions been this frequent?" Marissa wasn't sure. She mumbled something about them starting a few hours ago. The doctor gave her a maternal pat on the shoulder, explaining that if labor progressed, they might need to move fast, given Marissa's medical history and the baby's slightly premature state. Yet through it all, her phone remained silent. No calls, no texts, not even a single message from Max. She felt a fresh wave of fear. Is he safe? She tried to distract herself by tuning into the beeping machines, letting the antiseptic smell anchor her. Anything to not dwell on the painful truth. In a moment of desperation, she called a long-time friend, Andrea Simmons, who lived downtown. Within half an hour, Andrea burst into the hospital room, out of breath, hair disheveled from rushing over. "Oh my God, Marissa, are you okay?" She took her friend's hand, tears brimming in her eyes. "Has Max?" "He hasn't answered," Marissa croaked. Andrea's jaw set with rage, but she swallowed her anger for Marissa's sake. The night wore on, and the contractions eased, then intensified again. It was an emotional roller coaster, but her labor wasn't progressing smoothly. Dr. Perez recommended medication to slow the contractions, giving the baby a chance to develop a bit more if possible, or at least to coordinate a safer delivery. The situation was stable for now, but it meant Marissa had to remain in the hospital under close observation. As the hours ticked by, daybreak ushered in the next painful realization. She hadn't seen or heard from her husband in over 12 hours, and it seemed the rest of the hospital staff was beginning to wonder why. Marissa felt an overwhelming sense of shame, mixed with heartbreak. After all, how could she begin to explain that the man who had once claimed she was his one and only had apparently abandoned her at the most vulnerable moment in her life? Meanwhile, across town, in the lavish penthouse suite of the Athena Hotel, Max Wellington was indeed with someone else. Olivia Reynolds was curled up against him in a plush, velvet armchair. The city lights glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows, but even that breathtaking view paled in comparison to the seduction radiating from her confident smirk. Olivia was everything society loved to hate, a ruthless marketing maven with perfect posture, a swift tongue, and a figure that turned heads wherever she went. She had grown up in New York's elite circles, attending the best schools, mastering the art of manipulation disguised as charm. She had joined Max's company, Wellington Tech Ventures, with one goal: climb the ladder of success, no matter the cost. And what better rung to cling to than the founder himself? Sitting on the penthouse's chaise lounge, Max was sipping a glass of expensive whiskey, while Olivia leaned in to whisper sweet nothings in his ear. His phone lay abandoned on the glass coffee table. The ringer had been set to silent hours ago. A single glance would reveal numerous missed calls and frantic voicemails from Marissa. But in that moment, Max was half dazed by whiskey and adrenaline, enthralled by Olivia's cunning allure. "How about we fly to the Maldives next week?" she purred, tracing a manicured nail along his jawline. "I could use a break from all these exhausting board meetings." Max forced a chuckle. "You know I've got obligations," he murmured, though clearly not referencing the pregnant wife who was calling him incessantly. It was in that moment that Olivia's phone buzzed. She checked it casually. A text from a co-worker, heard Marissa's in the hospital. "Everything okay?" Immediately, the color drained from Olivia's face. A flicker of conscience, perhaps her last shred of humanity, made her step away from Max. "Hey, you should check your phone," she suggested, uneasy. "What for?" Max scoffed, swirling his whiskey. "It's probably just business stuff." With shaking fingers, Olivia turned Max's phone from silent to ring, and the screen lit up like a Christmas tree, notifications stacked. 11 missed calls from Marissa, 6 voice messages, a flurry of texts. As Olivia read the first lines of the texts, "I'm at the hospital. I think the baby is coming. Where are you?" Her heart sank. "Max, you need to go," Olivia said, her voice breaking slightly. She didn't love Marissa, but she understood that if Marissa was in the hospital, ignoring that call was not just morally reprehensible, it was potentially disastrous. Max's forehead creased. "Hospital? Is she?" He grabbed the phone, reading the messages. A myriad of emotions flitted across his face: shock, guilt, fear, annoyance. "She wasn't due for another month," he muttered, quickly scanning the timestamps. 1. "I can't believe this." And just like that, the house of cards threatened to topple. He jumped up, hastily throwing on his jacket. "Olivia, I need to get to Carter Memorial," he stammered, face ashen. "How about I come with you?" Olivia offered quietly. He stared at her, uncertain, a swirling vortex of panic in his eyes. "That might not be the best idea," he managed. "I'll call you." Olivia watched him race for the door, a swirl of conflicting emotions drowning her. She had wanted to be the center of his world, had fought to keep him by her side. Now, reality struck. Her lover was about to become a father, and she was, no matter how she spun it, the mistress who had kept him occupied while his wife languished in labor alone. An hour later, Max tore through the hospital corridors, ignoring the stares from staff. He barged into the labor and delivery room, only to be met with a sight that made his stomach twist. Marissa lay in bed, pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion, the fourth line snaking out from under her hospital gown. Andrea Simmons sat by her side, gently massaging her wrist. Both women looked up at him in unison, and if glares could kill, he would have dropped right there. Marissa's eyes filled with tears the moment she saw him. She tried to speak, but her voice trembled. "Where were you?" she asked, half a whisper, half a broken cry. Max swallowed hard. He couldn't tell her he'd been in a penthouse suite with Olivia. Not like this. He stammered, I was in a meeting, phone on silent." "A meeting? At midnight?" Andrea spat, jaw tight. "Marissa could have died driving here alone. The baby," she cut herself off, glaring. "You're unbelievable." A red flush crept into Max's cheeks. He tried to approach Marissa, but Andrea stood, crossing her arms. "I think you should talk to her carefully," she warned. Then to Marissa, she whispered, "Do you need me to stay?" Marissa shook her head, not wanting an even bigger confrontation in front of more people. Andrea nodded and left the room, but she didn't go far. She stationed herself just outside, ready to intercede if Max dared to upset Marissa further. Now alone, Max inched closer to the bed. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, tears of what might be genuine regret shining in his eyes. "I never wanted you to go through this alone. I was just so caught up. You weren't there," Marissa rasped. "I could have lost our child, Max. Do you even realize how scared I was? How alone I felt. This is our baby, yours and mine." For a moment he just stood there, guilt etched into every feature. Then he tried to take her hand, but she pulled it away. "Let's just focus on you and the baby right now," he pleaded, ignoring her withdrawal. "What's the situation?" She explained with an unsteady voice that her labor might be preterm. Doctors were monitoring her in case they had to do an emergency C-section. There was a risk, and Dr. Perez wanted to keep her hospitalized until things stabilized. "I'm staying here," Max said, trying to show some semblance of commitment. "I'll stay by your side." Marissa closed her eyes, tears leaking down her cheeks. She felt as though an invisible wall had grown between them, built on lies and suspicion. And though she yearned for his comfort, she couldn't shake the image of him missing in action for almost 12 hours. Her phone calls going unanswered while she'd been on the verge of giving birth. Over the next few days, Marissa remained in the hospital. Her contractions had eased somewhat, allowing the baby a bit more time. Dr. Perez's worry lingered, but for the time being, mother and child were stable. Max visited daily, always impeccably dressed in custom suits, shuffling between hospital visits and urgent business conferences. He brought flowers, stuffed animals, and a variety of gourmet treats, but his presence felt forced his phone forever buzzing, distracting him from giving Marissa the undivided attention she deserved. Andrea was a frequent visitor, bringing homemade soups and an endless supply of moral support. She and Max rarely spoke more than a few stiff words. Everyone around Marissa could sense the tension. Nurses exchanged knowing glances whenever Max left abruptly to take a phone call in the hallway. Rumors spread among the staff. Is the father having an affair? They had seen enough marital strife in these corridors to suspect as much, yet Max tried to do damage control. He slipped in and out, signing insurance forms, ensuring Marissa had the best suite, and offering private nurses if needed. Outwardly, he was the dutiful husband, inwardly a storm brewed. He was anxious, not just about the baby and Marissa's condition, but about Olivia's growing demands. She wanted reassurance that he would not abandon her. She wanted to keep her marketing position, her perks, and his attention. Late one afternoon, while Marissa was dozing, Max took a phone call from Olivia in the hospital corridor. What he didn't realize was that Andrea had arrived just moments before and overheard him talking in hushed, desperate tones. "I can't leave right now, Olivia. She's still in the hospital." This is serious. Yes, I know what I promised, but he stopped mid-sentence, noticing Andrea glaring at him from 10 feet away, arms folded. He ended the call abruptly. Andrea, he said, voice low, Can we not do this here? She advanced on him, furious. You're at your wife's hospital door, calling your mistress? God, Max, how could you? Don't you realize how lucky you are that both mother and child are still alive? Keep your voice down, he hissed, scanning for eavesdroppers. Then, with a hint of desperation, he pleaded, You don't understand. My marriage with Marissa. It's complicated. I made mistakes, but I care about her. I do. Andrea shook her head, disgust evident in her eyes. Then act like it. End whatever is going on with that woman and focus on your wife. Max swallowed, guilt gnawing at him. He turned away, unable to meet Andrea's gaze. He knew she was right, but something inside him, ego, lust, or perhaps just selfishness, held him back. Days turned into a week, and Marissa's situation worsened. The baby's heart rate became erratic at times, and Dr. Perez began talking about scheduling a potential C-section if the baby showed more signs of distress. Marissa, though exhausted physically and emotionally, clung to hope. She prayed silently each night, pressing her hand against her belly, promising the unborn child. She would do anything to protect them. Max was at the hospital when Dr. Perez delivered the news. They needed to schedule an emergency C-section the next morning if the baby's heart rate didn't stabilize. Panic flared in Marissa's eyes, and she looked to Max for reassurance. For a moment their hands intertwined, and she found a flicker of comfort in that grip. It reminded her of a time before the secrets, before the betrayal, when his hand around hers had felt like a promise of safety. That evening, Marissa waited anxiously in her hospital bed, a swirl of fear making her heart pound. She needed Max to be there, to hold her hand through the night, to remind her that she was not alone in this. But as the sky outside the window turned to orange twilight, Max excused himself. He claimed he needed to pick up a few items from home and finalize something urgent with his lawyer. Why can't you handle it tomorrow? She asked weakly, eyes brimming with tears. Max hesitated, his phone buzzing in his pocket. I can't. It's time-sensitive. They locked eyes for a moment. Something in her expression seemed to say, Don't do this, please. I need you. But he slid his hand from hers and left, promising he'd return within a couple of hours. Marissa's heart sank. She watched the clock tick, each minute intensifying her dread. Finally, she broke down. Andrea arrived to find her weeping silently, trembling from head to toe. All the stress, the heartbreak, the fear for her unborn baby's life was crashing down on her simultaneously. It's going to be okay, Andrea murmured, giving Marissa a reassuring hug. You're strong, and the doctors here are top-notch. Let's focus on getting you mentally ready for tomorrow. But how could she prepare herself when the one person she needed was constantly slipping away? In truth, Max had hurried back to the Athena Hotel, where Olivia was waiting. She'd threatened to go public with their relationship if he didn't show up that night. Panicked about the implications for his company reputation and possibly worried about Marissa, finding out he had caved to Olivia's demands yet again. When he arrived, Olivia was pacing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, her phone in her hand. The moment Max walked in, she unloaded a barrage of accusations. Do you realize how humiliating it was to hear about your wife's emergency from someone else? I thought you said you'd keep me in the loop. Max pinched the bridge of his nose, the weariness of the situation crashing over him. Liv, please. My wife's in critical condition. The baby's not stable. I had a million things on my mind. I'm here now. She gave a cynical laugh. Yeah, you're here, physically, but your mind is somewhere else, worried about Marissa. Her tone dripped with jealousy. I told you if you wanted me in your life, you need to prove it. Offer me something real. Stop treating me like a dirty secret." His anger flared. "You are a secret, Olivia. Don't you get that? If Marissa finds out, she'll... I can't even think of the damage. The business, the press, our entire future. This is a scandal waiting to explode." Something broke in Olivia's eyes. "I thought you loved me. And if you love me, you'll tell her. Because I won't be strung along anymore." It was a standoff, Max struggling to hold on to the precarious threads of his double life, Olivia refusing to remain hidden. Finally, he asked her to give him more time, just until the baby was born safely, and until he could figure things out. She reluctantly agreed, but only because he promised her a lucrative raise and a promotion within the company. It was nearly midnight when Max left the hotel. The city was quiet, the roads nearly empty. He drove back to the hospital, a crushing sense of guilt weighing down every breath. Somewhere in the recesses of his mind, he knew that this betrayal couldn't last forever. He couldn't keep juggling both women without destroying himself and everyone else involved. The next morning arrived, and so did the time for Marissa's emergency C-section. Max was there, face pale, wearing the standard operating room scrubs. He tried to offer her words of comfort, but she barely responded. She was numb from the heartbreak, from the anesthesia, from the terror of what might happen if something went wrong in that operating suite. "I'll be right here," he whispered, placing a shaky kiss on her forehead before the nurses wheeled her away. The procedure felt like an eternity. Max paced in the waiting area outside, glancing at his phone every few minutes. Olivia had sent another text, demanding updates. He ignored it for now. There were bigger things at stake. Finally, Dr. Perez emerged, pulling off her surgical mask. "Mother and baby are stable," she said, relief brightening her features. It was a bit tense for a moment, but they both pulled through. "You have a baby boy, Mr. Wellington." His heart soared with a fleeting sense of joy. A son. He was a father now, but before he could revel in the moment, Dr. Perez added, "Marissa had some complications due to blood loss. She'll need rest and close monitoring, but we believe she'll be fine. You can see her in recovery soon." When Max finally laid eyes on his newborn son, Tiny, swaddled in pastel blue blankets, he felt an emotion he couldn't describe. Love, or maybe even redemption. The baby's little hand curled around his finger, and for that split second, Max forgot all about Olivia. The lies, the business deals, everything. He just wanted to be the best father he could be. Marissa, still groggy, opened her eyes to find Max holding the baby. She managed a weak smile. "He's perfect," she murmured. Tears slipped down her cheeks, blending with the swirl of joy and heartbreak flooding her. Because, even though she was gazing at her beautiful baby boy, a voice in her head whispered about the betrayal those nights Max had been away. The rumors she couldn't ignore. They named their son Marcus James Wellington, honoring Marissa's father, James, who had passed away 2 years earlier. Over the next few days, with mother and baby recovering in the hospital's special suite, a semblance of peace settled. Max visited daily, sometimes bringing flowers, other times bringing new baby blankets, or stepping in to rock Marcus to sleep. Marissa observed him carefully. On one hand, he appeared genuinely enthralled by their son, as though fatherhood had ignited some dormant spark within him. On the other, she saw the flickers of guilt behind his eyes, the moments when his phone would buzz and he'd step outside with a troubled look. She sensed an invisible barrier between them, built on secrets. One afternoon, as the nurse was changing Marcus's diaper, Marissa took Max's hand. "I need to ask you something," she began, softly but firmly, "and I need you to be honest with me." Max tensed but nodded. "Anything." She stared into his eyes, searching for answers. "I've heard rumors about another woman," she confessed, voice trembling. I saw the texts once. Is it true? Have you been seeing someone else?" A heartbeat passed. Then two. Max's expression crumbled. He opened his mouth to respond, but his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it reflexively. Olivia. Marissa's gaze flickered to the phone, then back to his face. The color drained from hers, and he knew he had confirmed her worst suspicions without uttering a single word. Marissa gently removed her hand from his. "You should go," she said quietly, tears threatening to spill over. "I need some rest." "We'll talk later." Max's voice wavered. "Marissa, but he couldn't form the words. There was no explanation that could undo the hurt. He left the hospital room, and as the door clicked shut behind him, Marissa let out a silent sob. She pressed her face into her pillow, agony coursing through her body. She thought about her baby boy, the fragile family she had hoped to build, and the crumbling reality she now faced. Marissa was discharged a week later. She returned to the mansion with Marcus, Andrea, and a hired nurse, helping her through the postpartum period. The physical exhaustion of surgery paled in comparison to the emotional toll. Each time Marissa walked past the nursery, adorned in pastel colors and stuffed animals carefully chosen by Max, she felt both heartbreak and hope. Their child was here, healthy, a miracle. But she couldn't ignore the heartbreak of betrayal. Max tried. He really did. He spent a couple of nights at home, pacing the nursery in the small hours of morning, cradling Marcus in his arms. But more often than not, some urgent matter pulled him away. In truth, Olivia was pressuring him to finalize his promises, her promotion, a bigger office, even talk of a separate condo in the city where she and Max could meet discreetly. She warned him that if he reneged, she would go straight to the tabloids. Torn between guilt and fear, Max caved to each demand. He rationalized it as a temporary measure, a way to keep his public image intact until he could figure out how to salvage his marriage, if that was even possible. Meanwhile, Marissa caught glimpses of the truth in small, devastating ways. She found a hidden credit card statement showing extravagant charges at luxury hotels and spas she had never visited. She overheard fragments of Max's hushed phone calls at odd hours. One evening, as she walked down the hall to the living room, she caught him on the couch, arguing with Olivia on the phone. Though she didn't hear every word, she heard enough. "I'll transfer it tonight," he hissed. "Just don't do anything rash. I promise we'll be together soon." Their eyes locked when he noticed her standing there. An awkward silence followed. Then, with an exasperated sigh, he ended the call. Marissa stared at him, tears brimming. "You keep lying to me," she said softly. "I can't live like this, Max." He reached out to her, but she took a step back. "I'm not sure I can forgive you," she whispered, "even if I wanted to." At this juncture, Andrea, who had been Marissa's rock through it all, decided to intervene more forcefully. She arranged a lunch meeting with Max at a nearby bistro. Surprised, he showed up, uncertain why she wanted to speak with him alone. The moment they sat down, Andrea laid out the facts. "Marissa deserves better. She just gave birth, and instead of being by her side, you're sneaking around. Do you realize how much stress you're putting her under?" Max rubbed his temple, frustration building. "Look, Andrea, I'm trying to manage a complicated situation. I love Marissa, I do, but I messed up, okay? I don't know how to fix this overnight." Andrea glared, unimpressed. "You're not even trying. You're coddling a woman who's blackmailing you instead of fighting for your wife. You have to make a choice. And if you choose Olivia, then have the decency to let Marissa go so she can heal and move on. Don't dangle hope in front of her and keep betraying her behind her back." Max was silent. He thought of Marcus, so tiny and vulnerable. He remembered the vow he'd made to protect and cherish Marissa. He thought of the illusions of grandeur he'd built with Olivia, the excitement, the forbidden thrill, and he realized how easily it could all collapse. "Think about your son," Andrea added, voice softer now. "He deserves a father who respects his mother. If you can't give him that, you'll fail him before he even has a chance to grow up." Those words hit home. Max looked down, his appetite gone. "I don't know what to do," he murmured, voice trembling. Andrea sighed. "Try telling the truth. Try being honest with your wife, for once, and accept the consequences, whatever they may be." That evening, Max came home, a determined glint in his eye. He found Marissa in the nursery, rocking Marcus gently. The lights were dim, and a lullaby played softly from a mobile above the crib. "We need to talk," Max said quietly. She looked at him, her expression guarded. "Go on." He took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you. About Olivia." Marissa's grip on Marcus tightened. "So it's true?" Max nodded, his eyes downcast. He confessed the affair in halting sentences, how it started as a flirtation, how it escalated, how he felt trapped by her demands now. He admitted he had lied repeatedly about his meetings, about his phone being on silent, about the nights he hadn't come home. Marissa's heart hammered. Hearing the truth was a knife twisting inside her. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and she gazed at Marcus, who was starting to fuss, sensing her distress. "So you betrayed me while I was pregnant," she whispered. "Yes," he choked out, tears in his own eyes now. "I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix this, but I want to make things right. For our son, for you." She handed Marcus to him, gently, so she could stand. Max cradled the baby, looking pathetically lost. "What does making it right look like?" she asked, arms crossed, hugging herself as if to hold her heart together. "I want to end it with Olivia," Max said, trembling. "I'll do whatever it takes to salvage our marriage." Marissa closed her eyes, swallowing back the torrent of pain. "What about the blackmail, the threats?" "You let her walk all over you," he nodded, shamefaced. "I'm prepared to deal with that. Legally, financially, however I must. I don't want to lose you." She stared at him for a long moment. The man before her was both familiar and shockingly distant. She remembered the nights she'd cried out for him, alone in her bed. The image of driving herself to the hospital, contractions raging, replayed in her mind. "I need time," she finally said. "I can't just welcome you back with open arms. If you really want to fix this, you have to prove it. Not with words, but with actions." Max nodded. "I understand," he whispered, pressing a kiss to Marcus's forehead. The baby squirmed, uncertain but slowly calmed in his father's arms. The next day, Max requested an urgent meeting with Olivia in her office at Wellington Tech Ventures. Nervous energy pulsed through him as he stepped off the private elevator. He'd often enjoyed clandestine rendezvous in her office after hours, but this time his heart pounded with dread. Olivia was perched on the edge of her sleek desk, arms folded. "I heard you wanted to see me. Must be important for you to risk coming here during work hours," she said, raising an eyebrow. Max exhaled shakily. "I'm ending it," he announced, voice firm. "Whatever we had, it's over. I'm staying with my wife and son." She scoffed. "You think you can just walk away? Did you forget everything I know about you, everything I can share with the press?" Her eyes narrowed. "I can destroy you," he swallowed. "I'm prepared for that, but I won't keep lying to Marissa. I won't let this continue. I'll pay off any contract or hush money, whatever it takes. But we're done." Anger contorted Olivia's features. She hurled a paperweight across the office, where it crashed into a framed motivational poster, shattering the glass. "You're pathetic," she hissed, "begging me not to expose you. I should have known you'd crawl back to your sweet, innocent wife. Tell me, Max, do you even love me?" A tremor ran through him. "I don't know. Maybe I thought I did. But now I know it's wrong. We hurt a lot of people." He paused. "I made a vow to Marissa. I can't break it anymore, Olivia sneered. She'll never forgive you, and I won't make this easy on you. Don't you dare think you can brush me aside like some disposable fling. Max steeled himself. I'll have my lawyers handle the formalities. If you go public, you go public. I'll handle that too. But you won't have a place in my life anymore. She clenched her jaw, frustration and rage blazing in her eyes. Fine, she said through gritted teeth, but don't expect me to walk away quietly. I'll show you exactly how ruthless I can be. Word spread quickly through certain circles, rumors of an explosive argument between Max and Olivia in the executive suite. Employees whispered about, raised voices echoing through the corridors, speculation fueling office gossip. By the following week, Olivia had resigned, or perhaps was forced out, depending on which rumor one believed. She vanished from the company's directory, leaving behind an ominous hush. Max returned to the mansion with a trembling sense of relief. He'd cut ties with Olivia, but at what cost? Would she retaliate? Would she plaster his infidelity all over the tabloids? He tried to keep a lid on those anxieties, focusing instead on the fragile hope of mending his relationship with Marissa. At home, the atmosphere was guarded, subdued. Marissa kept her distance, politely letting him see Marcus, but avoiding deep conversations. She was polite, even cordial at times, but the warmth in her eyes was missing. Andrea was around frequently, helping with household tasks, and Max could sense she was keeping a vigilant watch on him, ready to defend Marissa. The moment he slipped, one afternoon, Max found Marissa in the living room, carefully folding Marcus's tiny clothes. He approached cautiously, like someone entering a lion's den. "Hey," he said softly, "can we talk?" She looked up, her gaze unreadable. "What about?" He sat down, picking at a loose thread on the couch. "I ended it with Olivia. She's gone from the company. She might cause trouble, but I don't care. I'm ready to face whatever happens, as long as it means I can have a chance to be with you and Marcus." A tense silence filled the room. Then Marissa sighed. "I appreciate that you made that decision, but the trust, it's shattered, Max. You left me alone when I needed you most. Her voice trembled. I almost gave birth without you by my side. I can't forget that easily." He nodded, tears burning his eyes. "I understand. I'm not asking you to forgive me overnight. I just want you to know I'm committed. I will do whatever it takes." Marissa studied him for a long moment. Maybe it was the sincerity in his eyes, or maybe she was just tired of harboring so much anger. Finally, she said, "I'm willing to try counseling, marriage counseling, but I need you to know, if you ever betray me again, we're done. No second chances." Relief washed over him. "Thank you," he whispered. "I won't let you down." In the weeks that followed, Max and Marissa began attending therapy sessions with a renowned counselor named Dr. Caroline Reed. Dr. Reed was known for her no-nonsense approach, peeling back the layers of deceit and trauma that had built up between them. The sessions were brutal. Marissa unburdened her hurt, recounting the lonely nights, the humiliating hospital scene, the heartbreak of discovering her husband's infidelity. Max confronted his own demons, his need for validation, his thrill-seeking behavior, his inability to recognize how deeply he was hurting his wife. They both cried. They both shouted. They both considered walking out more than once. Still, they kept returning. Something in them refused to give up entirely, perhaps for the sake of Marcus, or perhaps because a love once so strong still flickered beneath the rubble. Over time, small changes became noticeable. Max would prioritize time at home, turning off his phone during family dinners, rocking Marcus to sleep, practicing the fatherly duties he'd once neglected. Marissa, though still cautious, began to let down her guard incrementally, allowing moments of closeness. She'd place a hand on his shoulder during a difficult therapy session, or let him hold her after a nightmare woke her in the dead of night. The road ahead was steep, but at least they were walking it together. Just as life seemed to be inching towards stability, a new storm broke out. A popular gossip website posted an article titled, "Millionaire Mogul's Double Life, Max Wellington's Mistress Speaks Out," accompanied by blurry photos of Max and Olivia entering the Athena Hotel together late one night. It was a scandalous expose. Marissa discovered the article when Andrea called her frantic. The story was everywhere: online, social media, business blogs, even trending topics. Olivia had provided enough proof to turn the rumor into a sensational news bite. The article detailed alleged hush money, sexual harassment claims, and the possibility that Olivia might be pregnant as well, though the article offered no hard evidence. Max was livid. He convened with his lawyers, who immediately issued a statement denying the more salacious claims. The company's PR team went into overdrive, trying to extinguish the blaze of scandal that threatened to engulf Wellington Tech Ventures. Investors panicked, and the stock price wobbled in response. Marissa initially was numb. She'd known about the affair. Now the entire world seemed to know too. Paparazzi staked out their mansion, hoping for a shot of the scorned wife or the repentant husband. The phone rang off the hook with reporters seeking a statement. Amid the chaos, Andrea came over, ready to help. "Is there anything I can do?" she asked, hugging Marissa, who had tears streaming down her face. Marissa gave a shaky sigh. "Just help me stay calm for Marcus's sake. He can't sense I'm too stressed. We'll figure it out." Max returned home that evening, looking hollowed out. "I'm sorry," he said in a hoarse whisper, burying his face in his hands. "I tried to keep this from blowing up. I know I've humiliated you." Marissa put a hand on his shoulder, unexpectedly calm. "We knew it was a possibility," she said. "Now we focus on protecting our child and ourselves from the media circus." He looked up, eyes rimmed with red. "Do you hate me?" She swallowed hard. "I'm angry, I'm hurt, but hate, no. Not yet, anyway." After much deliberation with their PR team, Max and Marissa agreed to give a short statement to the press together. The idea was to present a united front and quell the rumor mill before it spun further out of control. For Marissa, it was an agonizing decision. She'd rather retreat from the limelight, but she recognized the business ramifications for Max. And she also didn't want the tabloids fabricating even wilder stories about her silence. They held a brief press conference in the lobby of Wellington Tech Ventures, away from the mansion. Max stood before the microphones, looking uncharacteristically humble, while Marissa joined him, eyes downcast. The cameras flashed incessantly. Max began with a prepared statement. "Over the past days, rumors have circulated regarding my personal life. Some are true, others are grossly exaggerated. My family and I are deeply saddened by how this has been sensationalized. I have made mistakes I will regret for the rest of my life. However, my focus now is on repairing my relationship with my wife and caring for our newborn son." Marissa stepped up next, voice trembling slightly. "This is a personal matter that has unfortunately become public. My priority is my son's well-being, and I ask for the press to respect our family's privacy. We are working through our issues, and we kindly request the public not to jump to conclusions based on rumors." Questions erupted, reporters shouting about Olivia's potential pregnancy, hush money, the impact on business deals. A security team ushered Max and Marissa away before the frenzy grew worse. As they left, arm in arm, both felt the crushing weight of public scrutiny, uncertain if they'd made the right move. The media storm raged for another few weeks before gradually receding, replaced by fresher gossip on different celebrities and scandals. In that time, Marissa found herself feeling oddly liberated. The affair was public. She no longer had to tiptoe around half-truths. She could decide how she wanted to move forward without worrying about secrets. Max doubled down on therapy and gestures of contrition. He drastically reduced his workload, delegated responsibilities to trusted lieutenants, and spent more time at home. Each morning he fed Marcus, changed his diapers, and let Marissa sleep in a bit longer. He walked the garden with her, discussing mundane things like how best to prune Rosebush's normalcy they both craved. Counseling with Dr. Reed continued, guiding them to address old wounds, family history, and patterns of communication. It was not an easy or swift process, and they still had explosive arguments. But they were learning to fight fairly, to confront each other with honesty, rather than sabotage and deception. One late evening, as they both stood over Marcus's crib, watching him sleep, Max reached out for Marissa's hand. "I'm grateful for you," he whispered. "You could have walked away, and you still can, but you stayed. I won't waste that second chance." She squeezed his hand gently. "I'm still scared, Max. One day at a time, okay?" He nodded. One day at a time. Months passed. The scandal, once front-page news, faded into a footnote for all but the most ardent gossip followers. Marissa and Max found themselves in a precarious but genuine phase of reconstruction. Trust is not rebuilt in a day, nor is forgiveness an event, it's a process. But each day that Max truly showed up for his family, a tiny piece of trust was restored. Sometimes Marissa cried late at night, mourning the innocence that was lost. The betrayal had changed her, left scars on her heart. Yet she looked at Marcus, a symbol of new life, and felt hope. If she could learn to love and care for this child so completely, maybe she could learn to let go of the past's darkest shadows. Andrea remained a steadfast friend, celebrating small victories with them, from Marcus's first laugh to Max cooking dinner for the family. "I never thought I'd see the day," she teased Max one evening when he presented a surprisingly tasty pasta dish. He grinned sheepishly, acknowledging how far he'd come from the remote, self-centered man he had been. Olivia, for her part, faded from their day-to-day reality. Rumor had it she'd relocated to Florida for a new job, though occasional hints on social media suggested she was still trying to spin the story in her favor. For Max and Marissa, she was now just a name in their history, an antagonist in their personal drama. They both hoped never to revisit. On Marcus's first birthday, the Wellington mansion overflowed with balloons and laughter. Close friends gathered on the sun-drenched lawn, and Marissa beamed as she watched her little boy waddle through the grass, giggling at everything in sight. Max stood by, capturing photos with a proud gleam in his eye. The tension that once choked the mansion had lifted significantly. With therapy, time, and relentless effort, they had carved a path forward. The memory of that fateful night when Marissa had driven herself to the hospital, terrified and alone, remained a painful reminder of how low things had sunk. But it also served as a testament to Marissa's resilience and the power of reconciliation when two people commit to growth. Later that evening, as the guests trickled out and Marcus slept in his crib, Max and Marissa found themselves alone on the back patio. The sky was painted with stars. Max took a deep breath, then said, "Thank you for giving me another chance." She gazed at him, eyes reflecting both warmth and cautious remembrance. "Thank you for proving you deserved it." They sat in companionable silence, letting the night air envelop them. Their marriage was no longer the glitzy fairy tale it once appeared to be. Instead, it was real, filled with scars, lessons, and hard-won understanding. Maybe, just maybe, that kind of marriage was stronger than any illusion of perfection. Years later, Marissa would recount her story to a women's support group, tears in her eyes, a tremor in her voice. She'd talk about the betrayal, the heartbreak, the lonely hospital drive, and the long road to healing. She would explain how sometimes Love can survive the ugliest storms if both partners are willing to put in the work. Other times, the best path is to walk away. Each person, each relationship is unique. For Marissa, the decision to stay and rebuild had been the right one, if only because Max truly changed. She often heard from friends that not every cheating spouse transforms, and she agreed. But in her case, she found that second chances can be real if accountability and remorse are genuine, if empathy blossoms where self-interest once thrived. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Each anniversary, they'd share a quiet toast to the survival of their love, tempered by pain, yet bolstered by forgiveness. And every time she looked at Marcus, eventually joined by a younger sister named Clara, she remembered that even in the darkest nights, a glimmer of hope could guide her way. Thank you for watching and experiencing this deeply emotional journey with us. We followed Marissa through heartbreak, betrayal, and the shock of facing an uncertain birth alone, only to discover she possessed more resilience than she ever knew. We watched Max's high-stakes world crumble beneath the weight of his own selfish choices. And yet, by confronting his mistakes and fighting for redemption, he managed to find a fragile new beginning for his family. If this story moved you, made you reflect, or even just kept you on the edge of your seat, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs hope or a reminder of the power of forgiveness, and subscribing to this channel for more gripping stories. Your support helps us continue to bring you tales that stir the heart and provoke thought. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you next time.